Hello, my name's Keith. Welcome to Wray in the Bay. Evaporative Emission Control System. Let's call that EVAP for short. Friend or foe? You know, I love a good steak. Ribeye is my very favorite cut. And I've been grilling them for 45 years now. Getting pretty good at it, I think, but hey, sometimes I make a mistake. When I overcook a steak, I have Worcestershire sauce to cover up my mistake. When I make a mistake at diagnosing an EVAP system, it's not so easy to cover up. In today's Wray in the Bay, I'd like to talk about what steps to take with EVAP diagnosis that will negate the need for Worcestershire sauce. By the way, my friends tell me I say that wrong. I say to them, potato, potato. So some technicians and shop owners consider EVAP problems to be a friend. It must be because it's a common problem, number one. Many in the industry believe that approximately 3 out of the top 10 diagnostic trouble codes, or DTCs, are EVAP related. So I guess that those who consider it a friend are profitable with diagnosing and repairing the EVAP system. Others consider EVAP a foe. I wonder why. Is it because it can be difficult to diagnose? Could it be that EVAP is a leading cause of comebacks? Let's review what it takes to avoid mistakes. Since Worcestershire sauce won't help us with this, let's see what we need to do to make dealing with EVAP issues profitable for all. What is the mission of the EVAP system? First is to prevent gasoline fumes from escaping into the atmosphere. Second is to capture fuel vapors from the fuel tank. Next, it sends those vapors into the engine to burn. Then it activates a diagnostic trouble code and a check engine light when leaks are detected. The components of the EVAP system are the vehicle control module, that's the PCM or ECM. This control module operates each component at the correct time using factors like engine speed, RPM, outside temperature, and fuel tank pressure. It also monitors the system with tests while the vehicle's running and also after it's shut off. The gas cap, big major player. The gas cap should keep fuel vapors from escaping the EVAP system. The cap is constantly loosened and tightened, therefore the gasket on the cap has a high potential to fail. And not tightening the cap will trigger a code in a light. I am guilty of that. Anybody else? A P0442 fault code means that the control module has determined there's a small leak in the EVAP system. A diagnostic starting point would be to check that gas cap to make sure it's sealed properly. I'm going to guess that that's probably one of the most common things. Next is the fuel tank pressure sensor. It measures the pressure inside the tank, reports that to the vehicle's control module. The vapor lines simply carry the fuel vapors in the system. The purge valve, very important. This valve allows a vacuum from the engine to pull fuel vapors into the intake system to be burned. The purge valve is a mechanical device, so over time it can become stuck or fail completely. If this valve happens to be stuck open, it can cause a hard start, especially after adding fueling the tank. It's allowing raw fuel into the combustion chamber. So when the purge valve has been stuck open, I would always recommend changing the oil because it's most likely fuel saturated and can cause engine damage. A P0455 fault code means that the control module has determined there's a large leak in the EVAP system. A diagnostic starting point would likely be the purge valve and the vent valve for proper operation and that there's not a massive leak in the fuel vapor line. The vent valve allows fresh air into the EVAP system and prevents an excessive vacuum from building up. EVAP parts like the vent valve generally fail because of their moving parts. A P0446 fault code can be triggered by a vent valve not opening or closing correctly. Here we go with the big one, the charcoal canister. The charcoal canister is a device filled with activated charcoal, which is used for trapping fuel vapors. When the vehicle is operating at the correct conditions, the control module will open the purge valve and allow the fuel vapors from the charcoal canister to flow into the intake system on their way to the combustion chamber. The charcoal canister can also come apart internally. The activated charcoal inside can clog the fuel vapor lines. Clogs can happen because of foreign objects entering the EVAP system, such as bugs, dust, or dirt. Speaking of bugs causing a clog, just imagine a spider building a web in the canister. Apparently there's something about the smell of fuel that attracts them. It happens so often that Mazda actually released an emissions recall on certain models, inviting Mazda owners to come in for an inspection to clear any webs. I'm sure that's not limited to Mazda vehicles. When my wife, I call her Miss Honey, finds out that gasoline attracts spiders, we may have to trade her Honda in for something like that's got a diesel powertrain or maybe an electric vehicle. She hates spiders. Well, all but one. She actually had this happen to her years ago back in Texas. This one became a well-fed, slightly plump pet after my wife was stung by a Texas scorpion that was hidden in the end of a garden hose, got her in the finger. After the intense fire-like pain subsided, she was on a mission. She asked me to loan her the Stork, my favorite pair of bent head, long reach needle nose pliers. Snap-on brand, of course. Pliers in hand, she stomped outside and began turning over rocks. She extracted a heavy toll on the scorpion population that day with the Stork. She then remembered the huge spider that had built her web by my workshop. Miss Honey wondered, who will win this fight to the death? That's when one lucky spider became her friend. Miss Honey placed a stinging scorpion at the bottom of the web with those pliers. The spider neutralized the scorpion in seconds, wrapping its tail up in silk. By the end of the summer, the spider, Charlotte, was so well fed with scorpions she was visibly and happily chubby. Long live that one spider. All right, so one last thing about charcoal canisters. Are you one that squeezes as much gas in the tank as possible to top it off? You know who you are, right? You just keep squeezing that gas pump. Top it off to the very next dollar or even more, right? As much as you could possibly get. Where do you think that gas goes after the pump kicks off and you force feed it more? Well, basically, it goes to the carbon canister and it saturates it. The carbon canister is not designed for raw gas. It's designed for vapors. So when you overfill a gas tank, it can damage the EVAP system by flooding that intake with liquid fuel. This can overwhelm the charcoal canister and basically cause it to be damaged. That will cause a check engine light and potential repair cost. Essentially, the system's it's just not meant to handle raw fuel, just vapors. So overfilling disrupts its normal function. Understand that many components of evaporative emission system, EVAP, span the car from bumper to bumper. And also vehicle manufacturers have different names for the parts, different designs. However, the goal remains the same, to reburn fuel vapors instead of allowing them to escape into the atmosphere. What are some other common problems of the EVAP? Well, leaks. Leaks in the EVAP systems are usually due to failed gaskets or O-rings. EVAP leaks allow fuel vapors to escape into the atmosphere and maybe even be able to smell them from outside the vehicle. Software updates to control the module. To control modules, software could potentially need an update or a reflash. A new update could provide a new specification window for the EVAP system on how the control module manages EVAP. What tools are needed to diagnose the EVAP system? Well, we need a scan tool. Many scan tools can provide a diagnostic direction by providing fault codes. The best scan tools also have special functions to directly test EVAP components, even a service bay test that runs a self-test on the entire system. A smoke machine that can fill the EVAP system with smoke and allow a technician to see those large leaks as well as the small leaks. Some brands can even measure the size of the leak. It's also important to have the proper information. Information is vital when diagnosing the EVAP system. Each manufacturer has a specific way they control the EVAP system. A great information system like ShopKey Pro can provide useful information to diagnose EVAP problems quickly and accurately. So having the right tools and a solid understanding can definitely make a friend out of EVAP systems because they will become a profitable job. You can save the Worcestershire sauce for those overcooked steaks. Of course, I now have the right tool for that job also, a good old chef's meat thermometer. I believe I'll put that to work right now. So thank you for joining me on another edition of Wray in the Bay.